Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome C. Stephen Tucker.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming. The great one, Mark Levin, just signed my book, so I'm not letting go of it until I leave this stage. He's coming up pretty soon. For many, many months before the passage of the Patient Protection and Unaffordable Care Act, we were told by our friends on the left, of which I have zero, that we had to pass this law to solve the issue of pre-existing conditions. We were also told that 45,000 people were, quote, dying in the streets. Is that true? No. Of course it's not true. First of all, we know people are not dying in the streets because of what law? EMTLA. EMTLA is an acronym that stands for the Emergency Medical Treatment and Leave Act. It was passed under President Ronald Reagan. If you're 250 yards from any emergency room in this country, they must treat you regardless of your ability to pay. Okay? But was President Obama speaking truthfully when he said that if you're denied for health insurance in the individual market where there is no protection for pre-existing conditions, does that mean that you're left with no option? No. And who's responsible for pre-existing conditions anyway? Where did they come from? Where did a clause like that come from? Well, as is the case with most of our problems, it comes from here, right here in Washington, D.C. You see, back in 1996, a bipartisan group of legislators got together and they wrote a law called HIPAA. And when most of us hear of the word HIPAA, we think of one thing. What is that? Somebody tell me. Privacy. That's right. But there's a far more important clause in HIPAA, and it's actually the letter that's responsible for the third word in HIPAA, which is portability. Portability allows one to port one's coverage for pre-existing conditions from an employer-sponsored plan to another employer-sponsored plan, as long as they find a new job that provides that coverage within 63 days, right? That's called HIPAA portability law. How do we know that's true? Has any employer ever looked you up and down and said, boy, you could lose a few pounds? How many medications do you take? Does your family have a history of heart disease, right? It's illegal for them to do that because of HIPAA law, and that protects 90% of the American insured. But when the federal government wrote this law, they dropped the ball. And they extended no portability protection for those of us in the individual market that buy our own health insurance. That's 10% of the American insured. Today, that's 14 million Americans. Those people, prior to Obamacare, could be denied for coverage for pre-existing conditions. Now, did we need Obamacare to solve that problem? Did we need to spend, according to the CBO, $2 trillion over the next 10 years? And by the way, still leave 31 million people uninsured after spending it. We did not. You see, the states stepped up and started their own solutions. We had infrastructure built already in 35 states before Obamacare was ever heard of. There were state high-risk health insurance pools. In the People's Republic of Illinois, where I hail from, we have one called ICHIP, the Illinois Comprehensive Health Insurance Plan. And if you are denied in the individual market for health insurance from any carrier, the regulators in the state of Illinois said that each insurance company that operates in Illinois has to give a percentage of their profits to a pool of money. And we will manage that money, and if you're denied from any carrier, you come to us and we will insure you regardless of your pre-existing conditions, and you'll carry a Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois card, even though you have pre-existing conditions. So guess what? We didn't need Obamacare to solve the issue of pre-existing conditions. 10 other states had guarantee issue individual mandates. I'll use the state of Ohio as an example. In Ohio, they mandated that each insurer offer 4% of their block of business to sick people once a year during open enrollment. Long before Obamacare, those things were in place. And there's another important clause of HIPAA, and that is Section 2742, which prohibits any health insurer in this nation from dropping your coverage when you are sick or raising your premiums when you are sick. And I found this out years ago as a health insurance broker. That's right, I'm an evil health insurance broker. Okay, so it's a clause that is ironclad. And I found this out, and I watched the Megyn Kelly show on November 7th, and I saw a gentleman that came on the show. His name was Bill Elliott. And he told her that in his fourth battle of cancer, thanks to Obamacare, his insurance company was dropping his coverage in the middle of cancer treatment, raising his deductible I think it was a $1,000 deductible up to a $1,500 deductible, and his premium from $189 a month up to $1,500 a month, and his deductible to almost $13,000. So I reached out to him and said, Bill, I want you to know the president's been lying to the American people for 4 years. They can't drop your coverage. They can't raise your premium. It's illegal for them to do so under federal HIPAA law. I said, I want you to contact Governor Nikki Haley in South Carolina. She's one of us. And so he did. He printed out Section 2742 off of my blog at truthaboutpreexistingconditions.com. Shameless plug. And Governor Nikki Haley faxed it to his insurance company. I get a message from Bill 3 days later, and it says, Steve, I can't believe it. The insurance company called me 8 hours later. You were right. I can keep my policy. And 3 weeks later, I want you to know that Bill is now in full remission. Largely because he could keep his health insurance policy. And what did he get for speaking out? A letter from the IRS. That's right, on Thanksgiving Day. The same day, by the way, that I got my letter. That's right. So I want you to understand that we should never be afraid from this tyrannical, lawless regime that we are living under, because we must speak out, because you never know, through God's grace, when you actually might save someone's life. Thank you for listening.